Greetings, friends, and welcome to Enigma Night Gaming. My name is Liara, and I will be your guide in today's adventure. Today, we're playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and in today's episode, we're going to be trying to pin this crime on Mr. Virgil. Or are we? He claims he's innocent, but is he really? I don't know that I believe him, so without further ado, let's hop into the game. Alright, so we're back at Sholmes' residence. 2nd of November, 3:38 p.m. Sholmes' suite. I still can't quite believe what just happened.
I know. I inquired with the bailiff after the court session was adjourned. And it seems Mr. Vigil was taken to hospital to recover.
Right? So he, passed out from the memories 10 years ago now? Mr. Vigil attempted to commit suicide by jumping out of the window of the prison governor's office. But ever since then, he's completely blocked the memory of those events from his mind. So what really happened? Nobody knew his secret. Not his family, not even the man himself, but I forced it out into the open. Was it wrong of me to do that? Did I overstep the mark, I wonder? I don't know. If he didn't do the crime, then who was it? Runo? Who's that? Is that going to be Iris? Yes, Iris. Oh, Iris.
You are miles away. Anyway, I brewed a fresh pot of soothing tea for you.
Oh, thank you.
You and Susie have had an exhausting day so far, haven't you? Oh.
She's excited to see her.
Thank you, Iris. How thoughtful of you.
Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is? When we came out of the courtroom back in the defendant's antechamber, he disappeared.
Oh, no, I don't know. He just suddenly sprang to his feet and left. All he said was, "I must leave." I wonder if he's pursuing the mystery of Inspector Gregson's death.
He could be.
Well, you know what Hurley's always saying, don't you? There are mysteries in this world that should perhaps never be solved.
Why?
For the construction of a solution comes only at the expense of the destruction of something else.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. What does that mean? It means you have to destroy something to come to the solution, right? So
he knows very well that when you open someone else's old wounds, you often open your own too. But he just can't take his own advice and leave well enough alone. Solving mysteries is too important to him.
That's so true.
But that's what I like about Hurley after all.
I suppose that's the lot of a great detective in some ways. Well, I mean, it makes sense.
So then, let's have tea, and then I'll give you a hand.
Oh, do you have time, Iris?
Yes, I finished this month's manuscript at last, with barely a day to spare before the deadline. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. A brand new story to read in the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. You know, I always hide Hurley's violin in the days before I have a deadline.
You do? Poor Mr. Sholmes?
I'm sure that's very wise, Iris. How sensible of you.
I guess that's so she can focus.
Now then, my dear fellows, let's make a plan of action before we continue our investigation.
Alright, so what do we want to do? Let's talk to Iris and see what we want to do. This morning's trial, how did this go?
So how did it go in court this morning?
Well, we still don't know the truth about what really happened, but one thing's increasingly clear. Lord Van Zieks definitely didn't do it. I agree. We gotta find out who did, though.
Oh, goody. Yes, that's right. We managed to uncover several new facts as well. Oh, really?
And there was another development, too. Kazuma.
Yes, it's quite clear now that Kazuma-sama is not himself. The way he's acting, it's almost as if he's possessed.
I know. I mean, at the end of the proceedings earlier, he was like a bloodhound the way he was chasing down Mr. Vigil's forgotten past. He's not normally so mercilessly persistent. He's got to get to the truth there. It's got to be eating at him, I wonder. What's going on in his head, I wonder? I really need to sit down with Kazuma and try to understand what he's going through. I wonder when we could do that, though. The Reaper's innocence? Let's see what she has to say about that. If Gregson was really murdered the day before his body was discovered, then Lord Van Zieks has to be innocent, you see.
What? The day before? Well, that should be easy enough to work out just by examining the corpse, surely.
I mean, one would think.
Yes, you would expect so, but curiously, no time of death was included in the autopsy report.
That is curious. Maybe we should talk to them at the morgue and find out why. There are still unanswered questions about Lord Van Zieks, though, aren't there?
Ah, do you mean?
I mean, what was he doing there on Fresno Street that day in the first place?
Well, according to the man's testimony, he said he was investigating Inspector Gregson, didn't he?
And it turns out that little room was actually the inspector's secret office.
Oh, that sounds like it has all the makings of a wonderfully devilish plot.
But then why was that notice board in there covered in all those particular papers? Papers about cases with a link to the Reaper. I'm starting to get a bad feeling about all this.
Oh dear, that sounds more like something horribly devilish. We must start by looking into Inspector Gregson's movements of late.
Yes, that sounds like a good idea. Where was he off to all the time? I never imagined I might have to be investigating an inspector's movements.
Well, according to the entry in his diary, he was carrying out an incognito investigation of the Red-Headed League the day before his death. Oh, did you mean he was doing the same as Hurley?
Well, Mr. Sholmes was trying to apply, whereas the inspector was supposed to be investigating.
I do wish it had been the other way around.
Anyway, as it turns out, the inspector who went to investigate the Red-Headed League that day wasn't actually Gregson at all. It was Mr. Vigil, in possession of Gregson's identification.
You know what that sounds like to me?
Establishing an alibi.
Oh my! Yes, you're absolutely right, Iris.
But why would Gregson need an alibi?
It would appear that the inspector had something to do that he wished to keep secret.
That could be.
I don't believe it. I always thought he was just a harmless lover of fish and chips.
But perhaps they were seasoned with something a little more potent than salt and vinegar? What would they be seasoned with?
I think perhaps we should try to move away from food analogies.
I agree, Susano, because they're not making a lot of sense. Well, anyway, if Lord Van Zieks felt the need to investigate Gregson...
Yes, I agree. We must try to find out what he knows.
Okay. What about Mr. Vigil's condition? Maybe we should visit him in the hospital.
Vigil, you say? Isn't that the name of the lady who came to visit Hurley yesterday? That's right. To ask Mr. Sholmes if he would help her to find her missing husband.
Only Mr. Sholmes completely passed the buck to us. Actually, didn't you say Mr. Vigil had been taken to the hospital? Do you know which one?
Ah, it's St. Sinner's.
Like, literally the only hospital we've had in this entire game. I'm starting to wonder if all the other hospitals in London have closed down. I was just thinking the same thing.
But that's amazing, Runo! You found the lady's husband already!
Well, I suppose I have. By accident.
And 10 years ago, while Mr. Vigil was chief warder at the prison, he was responsible for overseeing the professor's incarceration.
No! So when the convict escaped, he was held responsible and immediately dismissed.
Ugh, sometimes I really don't want to grow up.
There's more. For 10 years after that, while he was ostensibly working as a peddler, he also had another secret job. He was paid by Gregson to be a stand-in, to impersonate the inspector.
To impersonate Gregsy? But why?
I have absolutely no idea.
Ugh, Jenny was right. I'm starting to think all adults are up to no good now.
Including you, Runo. I haven't paid anyone to impersonate me. Why are we getting in trouble?
That means he has ties to the professor and to Inspector Gregson, though. So I do think we ought to pay a visit to Mr. Vigil, don't you?
Yeah, I actually think that's a good idea. Back to St. Sinners, then. All right, so off to the hospital we go.
Well, I think it's clear what we need to do, isn't it?
I think so.
Let us investigate, my dear fellows.
I love how she's like copying Sholmes's.
Oh, Iris, you're even more enthusiastic than usual today. If anyone has anything to hide, my special Wilson shooting iron will soon set them straight.
That water pistol?
It's stuffed full of a piping hot extra special blend of mine. Then I'm quite sure it will be very effective.
I'd better be careful not to hide anything. Well, it feels a little strange that Mr. Sholmes is nowhere to be seen, but still, let's go and see what we can find out.
Yes!
All right, so off we go. All right, 2nd of November, St. Sinners Hospital. Ward 3. There's nobody here. Can we examine this note? These must be the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Tendency to jump from windows. Remember to place cushion at base of wall outside. Aren't we a story up from the ground here?
Oh dear, poor Mr. Vigil.
I can't help feeling there's a better solution to the problem than a cushion, though. Finding something you'd lost isn't always a happy experience, it turns out. Pursuing the truth can be a very dark business sometimes, can't it?
Yes, I'm afraid it can.
What's this? This notice caught my eye before, actually.
I suppose it's some sort of slogan for the ward? A cheerful welcome message, perhaps?
Let's see. Pay with good cheer, leave with good cheer. Well, look at that. You were spot on, Miss Sasato. It's full of cheer.
I wonder how many discharged patients pay their medical bills with good cheer, though.
I mean, once I had to have a very painful injection when I fell ill with a cold. I felt awful already, so why did I have to suffer the sting of the injection as well as the bill? I yelled at the doctor.
Oh dear, what terrible treatment.
All right, let's look over here. There's crutches here. Why are there crutches? Oh look, a pair of crutches. Before we came to Britain, I hadn't realized they were used here as well.
I imagine they were imported into Japan from Great Britain in the first place.
Oh, so no one in all of Japan broke a leg before their arrival? Anyway, the sight of these things doesn't bring back good memories for me.
Oh dear, did you injure yourself once and need to use some?
When I was little, I thought they looked fun, so I borrowed a pair to play with. But then I slipped and sprained my ankle.
I see.
They contain powerful magic, those wooden staves, the power to heal and the power to harm.
I think a certain cheeky little boy managed to cause the harm all by himself.
I mean, that's probably true. Who's this? Ah, patient treatment notes. What do these say, I wonder? Endlessly obliging. I suppose that's referring to the patient in this bed.
I would think so. And until Mr. Vigil is a little more stable. It's probably just as well that he has a kindly person in the neighboring bed.
I mean, that's good. The endlessly part is a little worrying, though, isn't it? I mean, what if Mr. Vigil suddenly declared that he'd like to take a trip out the window? Would this endlessly obliging patient simply open it for him and say, "Be my guest"?
Let's check with the doctor later.
Alright, I guess we'll have to come back here. 2nd of November, British Supreme Court, Lord Chief Justice's office. Alright, so we're at the Lord Chief Justice's office and we see Kazuma. What are they talking about? No arguments, Prosecutor Shogi. You will continue with the trial exactly as I instructed. Is that clear? Perfectly.
It's Kazuma-sama.
Defying Lord Strongheart by the sound of it. He never did know when to back down. Oh boy. On your way now, Shogi. My lord. Alright, so Kazuma's... Oh, Kazuma's here. Hello? Kazuma. Bye? He left without saying a word. I wonder what's eating him. Yes, what are you doing here? Oh, I was just hoping to ask you a few questions if you wouldn't mind. I wanted Van Zieks' trial concluded today. But Prosecutor Shogi's unwelcome inquiries are going to make it take longer than necessary. Unwelcome inquiries? As a result, I'm losing even more precious time. Currently, 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 41 seconds. 42, 43. He counts by the second.
Then we must resolve everything before 3 hours have passed, Mr. Naruhodo.
In a miraculous not even 5 minutes? Anyway, I can't let the man's obvious bad mood put me off. I need information. Alright, so let's talk to him. The Reaper. Does Prosecutor Shogi believe that Lord Van Zieks is the Reaper? I wouldn't know. It was 10 years ago, in that fateful closed trial, that Lord Van Zieks made a name for himself among the judiciary, but the next trial he fought, he lost. It meant the ringleader of a criminal organization was acquitted, thanks to all the jurors being under duress. That's awful. The man's freedom was short-lived. He lasted just 3 days.
Yes, let me see. He died in a rock slide at his place of work, I believe.
Correct. That was the inauguration of the Reaper of the Bailey. And people believed Lord Van Zieks was responsible? He was brought to trial himself, but it was shown to have been an accident. So he must have had a solid alibi then. Nevertheless, the mysterious deaths continued. In total, 16 persons perished in unusual circumstances, ostensibly at the hand of the Reaper. That's a long run of coincidences.
Well, the Reaper's true identity may well be revealed by the trial.
I just had a really crazy thought. What if it turned out that the Reaper was actually Gregson? Wouldn't that be crazy? And the impact that revelation would have on the British public cannot be understated. Is that why it's a closed trial? Precisely. Okay, let's talk about that then. This country hasn't seen a closed trial for 10 years. So the last one was the Professor's? The trial of Genshin Shogi? Correct. Actually, we heard that originally you were going to prosecute that trial yourself, Lord Strongheart. Van Zieks entreated me to relinquish the prosecution to him, that he might avenge his brother's death. And here we are 10 years later. Oh boy. With the son of the man Van Zieks now had condemned, now looking to avenge his father's death in the same way. They do say that what goes around comes around. However, it would seem that the new young prosecutor is harboring some ulterior motive as well. Kazuma is? I like my organization to run smoothly in the exact manner that I prescribe. As with the giant clock in here, I won't tolerate a single cog being out of step with the others. Ah, so that's what all those gears are about in here. It's a symbol. If the young man refuses to mesh with the other parts of my great machine, I will be forced to take steps. What do you mean? Not something with which you need to concern yourself. In any case, all your questions will be answered tomorrow. Oh boy. So I guess we won't be finishing the case in the next 3 hours? Now I shall have to ask you to excuse me. As of this moment, I've been delayed from attending my next meeting by precisely 3 hours.
Oh my, that is a long time.
And I hold you entirely responsible. Even though we miraculously managed to fit everything into not even 5 minutes? Of course it's our fault. I wonder if you might agree to us, talking with Prosecutor Shogi? Discussions between the defense and the prosecution outside of the courtroom are generally frowned upon. However, I will make an exception in this case. Now go. You can find him in his office. Oh, thank you. All right. Well then, I guess we'll be off.
Let's go see him at once, Mr. Naruhodo.
I agree. Kazuma's my best friend in the world, but I'm really not at all sure I know how to talk to him at the moment. He's very, very different. All right, well, let's head over there. All right, 2nd of November, prosecutor's office. So, this is the office of Prosecutor Shogi now, is it?
Kazuma-sama is doing so well for himself.
I don't think it's real. Even though he's always forced to kneel on the floor Japanese style in that dark corner.
It's just a habit to sit how do you pronounce that? Seiza style whenever he's working.
I'm not sure. I've never seen that word before. Well, it looks like our journey here was wasted. He's not even here. The prosecutor appears to be out.
Perhaps we should discuss things with another prosecutor we know first?
Maybe. Let's go to the prison then. Let's go talk to Van Zieks. All right. We're just having to go all over creation. All right. 2nd of November, local prison. Cell number 1.
Lord Van Zieks is reading. Look. He doesn't seem like he wants visitors, does he?
But he must have noticed that we're here, surely. He's just like, please go away. What do you Nipponese want? That's no way to greet the lawyer who's trying his hardest to prove your innocence, is it? Perhaps not. Hmm? Oh boy. I apologize. So what can I do for you, Mr. Naruhodo?
Lord Van Zieks, speaking earnestly. Oh, the fog will lift over London for the first time in months tomorrow.
This does feel very, very strange. He's got to be feeling like, what are you guys doing to me? I must say, I was impressed. Oh, well, thank you? Not by you, by your fellow Nipponese, your prosecutor friend. Oh, I see. Yes. It's sardonic, don't you think? For a man such as me, so loathing of the Nipponese, to be entirely at the mercy of you, the two of you. I suppose. It's retribution for having played the part of the Reaper all these years. Played the part? Oh boy. I wonder what that means. Does he know who the Reaper is? You once told me that you gladly allowed people to believe you were the Reaper because it helped reduce the amount of serious crime that took place in London. If keeping quiet and playing the part benefits the cause, a cause I myself am committed to pursuing, then why would I choose to say anything? But the henchman of a criminal killed by the Reaper attacked you only the other day. And that was just the most recent of many attempts on your life, wasn't it? Someone is clearly profiting from your silence about this. Someone is using you. Believe me, ever since the Reaper first appeared, I've been doing my utmost to expose him, or rather, expose the organization. An organization?
Ah, it's a whole organization?
It's inconceivable that all those accidents were orchestrated by one man. No, the Reaper always appears to have a very accurate information about the accused in each case, which can only mean that somebody at Scotland Yard is involved. Oh, is it Gregson?
Someone at... You can't mean...
It's taken me many years, but I finally identified the central figure in this Reaper organization. Is he gonna say it? I knew it! I knew it! Tobias Gregson. Oh, man.
No. No!
Gregson the Reaper? I mean, that's what I thought. Let's see. It makes sense. So, the reason you were investigating Inspector Gregson is because you intended to expose him as the Reaper? As I said, the Reaper of the Bailey, it's no single person. It's a highly secret organization with close ties to Scotland Yard. But there's no doubt that Gregson was a key member of the organization.
I don't believe it. Are you saying that that he was behind all those awful criminals meeting there?
Gregson didn't directly do the dirty work himself.
Oh.
But he was providing information, right? He was the tactician. His job was to covertly investigate the marks and plot their assassinations. Okay? In order to do that without arousing suspicion, he regularly needed a firm alibi. Which is where Mr. Vigil came in, posing as the inspector. Vigil knows nothing of the Reaper, but the room he rents on Fresno Street was almost certainly the headquarters of the operation. Gregson would have met the assassin there for briefings. So we don't actually know who carried out the killings, then. Actually, I do have a name. You... What?
Well, if you can name the man, you have the true identity of the Reaper already, then.
Or, if I can name the woman.
Oh.
Oh, she's a young woman by the name of Asa Shin. Wait, what? Shin? It's all coming back to the beginning. Miss Asa Shin, the true name of a terrifying killer I know only too well. She came to Japan posing as a visiting student and murdered Dr. John H. Wilson. Oh, man. Then, just when it seemed that diplomatic protection would help her escape Japan and conviction, the mysterious woman was herself murdered in a small summer beach hut. And that woman was actually the Reaper of the Bailey? It would make sense why the past couple of cases nobody has died.
Mr. Naruhodo, this perhaps isn't the place to discuss.
No, of course not. We can't mention it here. The fact that she killed Dr. John H. Wilson, because Iris doesn't know, and it's very likely that the man was her father.
Asa Shin, I should let father know at once.
Yes, I agree. Oh, man. All right, so Prosecutor Shogi, what can you say?
Kazuma, isn't it? Kazuma Shogi. You say he's a friend of yours.
My best friend. He's the whole reason I got to come to Britain. It was all on his merits. I have nothing but respect for him.
Yes, I understand. Only the best, very best students are selected for such opportunities, and I had a fine demonstration of how sharp he is in the proceedings earlier today. He missed nothing. In fact, his flawless performance very much reminded me of his father.
Genshin Shogi, the professor.
It's true that the aristocracy at the time was the root of numerous grave societal problems. They were abusing their power, playing with the common man as pawns in politics, in economics, in war. In many ways, Shogi was carving out a canker from society that we British couldn't deal with ourselves.
I see.
But that's precisely why it makes no sense. Clint Van Zieks was noble and upstanding man. He wasn't corrupt. Why did that Nipponese have to go and take my brother's life? In spite of having once saved mine.
He saved your life? How did that happen? This is getting weird.
It was 10 years ago, on a foggy night. What was to be the professor's final strike had sent a wave of panic through the capital.
So Clint Van Zieks had already been killed at this point then?
Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. Of course, at that point, I had no idea of the true nature of the man at my side. All of a sudden...
Don't make a peep, you're coming with us. Who is this?
We were surrounded. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scarves. Clint was not only from noble heritage, he was a brilliant prosecutor as well. The scum of London hated the sight of him, and they had no sympathy for his younger brother either. I'd been targeted several times before already.
Yeah, it's Van Zieks, all right. We've got him.
I could hear them murmuring amongst themselves. I knew they were after me. But just when I thought my time had come, if I let them kill you, Clint would never forgive me. It was a Shogi's voice, just a whisper in my ear.
Oh boy. What was that?
After that, I don't remember exactly what happened. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He'd shielded me. 2 days later, they arrested him on suspicion of being London's most notorious mass murderer ever, the Professor.
How awful for you.
All at once, I lost the brother I revered and the foreign friend I held in such high regard.
Is it possible there was a mistake at the trial? I wonder. I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zieks. I almost wonder if we'll have to end up investigating that case.
That's the end of my miserable tale. I never thought I'd recount it to anyone.
Well, thank you for confiding in me.
The Professor, the Reaper, and Inspector Gregson. I wonder just how intimately related they all are.
I still can't quite believe that Gregson was essentially the Reaper. Giving assassination orders to Giselle Brett.
Mr. Naruhodo, let's go and inform my father. I'm sure our government will want to hear about this new information.
Oh, that means I get to meet your daddy, Susie. Hooray! Yes, all right. let's head back to the Great Waterloo Hotel then. Off we go. 2nd of November, the Great Waterloo Hotel. Okay, foyer.
I thought it yesterday, and I think it again today. This place is so princely.
It's a wild guess, but I have a feeling you'll think the same tomorrow, too.
My tea has a finer fragrance than whatever they're serving in the tea room here, though, wouldn't you say?
Look who we have here. This is an unexpected pleasure. Who is that speaking exactly? Okay, it's you.
Father. Oh, is this your daddy, Susie? How lovely.
What a charming young lady. And you are? Oh boy. Oh, really? So you're the author of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, are you?
That's me, Iris Wilson, at your service, sir. Susie's been such a wonderful friend to me over the last year, you know.
Well, Miss Wilson, I must say I read your work regularly and with much interest.
Iris actually lives with Mr. Sholmes, you know, Father.
Is that so? Well, perhaps that goes some way to explaining that bright look in your eyes.
Hee.
She's blushing. You wouldn't be smiling so airily if you knew just how bright she is, believe me. Now then, young Naruhodo, it was a pleasure seeing you in action earlier. As an invitee of the symposium, I was allowed to observe from the gallery. And I must say, it was a truly exemplary performance. Oh, well, thank you very much. Although I'm fairly sure you omitted by Kazuma on the end there. No. Please don't misunderstand. It was you who impressed me. Really? You didn't miss a step against a shogi, and we all know how capable he is. Really, to have matured into such a fine defense lawyer in less than a year is quite extraordinary. It's very kind of you to say so, and really nice to hear. He keeps getting beat down so much we never get compliments. What I saw in court today confirmed what I'd been hoping for. The favor I mentioned yesterday, Naruhodo, I trust you haven't forgotten. Oh, no, you did mention something, didn't you?
But first, we have something to report, Father.
Of course. Shall we take tea while we discuss matters further? I wonder where Judge Jigoku has got to. Oh boy. Alright, so let's talk to him about the Reaper.
Father, do you know about the so-called Reaper of the Bailey?
I've heard rumors. Some members of the judiciary explained it all to me yesterday. Of course, when I was a visiting student here in London, the Reaper was yet to emerge. Right, he didn't appear until after that case when the visiting students had already returned home. Lord Van Zieks, who was in the dock today, that was Beric, the younger brother of Clint Van Zieks, I believe.
That's right, and he's known throughout London as the Reaper, as you've heard. But the truth is, it wasn't him behind all those mysterious deaths. It was somebody else.
I see. So, what you're saying is, there's been a professional killer at work here. Exactly. Someone by the name of Azashin, in fact. I beg your pardon. Did you say Azashin? You mean that Giselle Brett woman who was responsible for killing my great friend?
Oh no, a friend of yours was killed?
Uh-oh. Professor Mikotoba, I think perhaps we shouldn't discuss this right now. Because the friend the professor is talking about is Dr. John H. Wilson. And that's not something we want Iris to find out about. Not like this, anyway. Okay, so we're going to talk about it anyways.
I've just remembered something. Biscuits. This hotel has the most delicious looking biscuits. That was rather out of the blue.
Is she gonna send Iris or some? She's doing this deliberately.
I think I'll go and see if I can purchase some. I wonder, would you like to come too, Iris? Oh, yes! You just try to leave me behind.
Okay, so now we can talk about it.
So that young girl is called Iris Wilson, is she?
Yes, that's right.
And she's the author of all those adventure stories starring the great Detective Sholmes. But the name of the credited author isn't Iris, is it? It's Dr. John H. Wilson.
Yes, I know. That's the name of her father, you see.
Her father, Dr. John H. Wilson. I was deeply indebted to the man for all the kindness he showed me during my time in London. That's why I was keen to reciprocate and invite him to the Imperial Yuma University 4 years ago. But he was murdered last year by Giselle Brett.
Why? Why would the hand of the Reaper stretch all the way to Japan? Iris knows nothing about that case, but it seems very likely that the victim, Dr. Wilson, was her father.
Well, I can't say that we ever spoke about his family, so I don't know if he had a daughter or not. But I think I can say with some certainty that he was never the great detective's partner.
So it could have been another Dr. Wilson, you think?
Well, John and Wilson are both common names, after all. Still, it's probably best not to mention this to the young lady until we can be sure.
That's what we thought, yes.
We're back with cinnamon biscuits.
Oh, they smell delicious, Iris.
I think cinnamon will go very well with the tea they serve here, don't you, Susie? Yes, I'm sure you're right, Iris.
All right, where's Judge Jigoku? I haven't seen Judge Jigoku in a while, have you? Guilty! Ha 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 ha! But I thought that guilty is still ringing in my ears. But that guilty is still ringing in my ears.
No, now that you mention it, I haven't seen him since this morning either. I suppose since the symposium's opening was postponed, he'll have gone to explore at the Great Exhibition. That reminds me of something you mentioned yesterday. About Judge Jigoku having once been in the dock himself. Ah, yes. It was all tied up with that accursed trial.
The closed trial of Kazuma's father.
Cicero was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took to the stand to testify. But he got a little carried away and, actually managed to break the witness stand.
He broke the witness stand?
Oh my! He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire, for which he was charged.
Oh dear. Although it's worryingly easy to imagine him doing that.
Well, it was all right in the end. He was acquitted and we returned home to Japan together.
Well, that's good.
Thank goodness. Ah, yes, talking of Cicero. I have a copy of the photograph we all took together here yesterday, please.
All right.
Oh, what a lovely picture.
It certainly seems to shout we've arrived in Britain. All right, a photograph taken in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel in the morning of Professor Mikotoba and Judge Jigoku's arrival in London for the symposium. Is this going to be used in court somehow, I wonder?
None of us had any idea what was coming when we took that, did we? No, that's so true.
All right, what's the favor? So you mentioned a favor that you'd like to ask me.
Well, this fateful trial that you're fighting, one way or another, it will be over before long. And when it is, I'd like you to accompany me back to Japan.
Oh boy, you want me to do...
What? But father, What's the meaning of this?
Now, Susato, you should understand. You've seen how our courts work firsthand. Japan's judicial system is in its infancy, especially when it comes to defense.
Oh, you mean...
The Supreme Court of Judicature is in desperate need of a good defense lawyer. As soon as possible. Really, quite urgently, in fact.
But I've not even been in London a year yet.
I've read all of Susato's reports. I'm well aware of your extraordinary talents. And having seen you in action with my own eyes earlier today, there's no question. You, Naruhodo, are precisely the man our country needs.
Oh boy. Oh man. So you'd be leaving then, Runo? But then, what am I supposed to do, Father?
You came here to serve as Ashogi's judicial assistant.
Oh, yeah, she's supposed to be Kazuma's assistant.
Our government is still in the process of deciding how best to deal with his situation, though.
Uh-oh.
You've always chosen your own path, Susato, and I trust your judgment. In this matter also.
Father!
Please, the pair of you, don't look so downcast. It's merely a suggestion, you understand. A hope, if I'm honest, but I won't force you. All I ask is that you consider it and come to a decision by the time this trial concludes.
Yes, all right. You won't leave, will you, Runo? Oh, poor Iris. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Up until now, I've just been trying to do what I believe to be Kazuma's will. But it turns out that he's still alive, so where does that leave me? Exactly. Man. I don't even know what to think about that.
Well, if you'll excuse me now, I need to telegram government ministries and the Japanese police with this information about Azashin.
Of course, Father. Thank you.
I look forward to next month's installment, Miss Wilson.
Oh, good. And please do come to Baker Street sometime, won't you? We'd love to entertain you.
I would be delighted. The best of luck for tomorrow, Naruhodo. And give my suggestion your full consideration, won't you?
Oh boy. Yes, I will. Going back home. Oh boy. What would the decision be, I wonder?
You know, Kazuma-sama has always meant a great deal to my father. I'm sure he'd love the chance to meet with him and talk to him about all of this.
Yes, no doubt.
Azashin. Of course. It's so obvious.
How could I have neglected to consider the possibility before now? Mr. Sholmes.
Hurley, where have you been?
Why, I joined you all for a tea, of course. What an extraordinary question. He just magically showed up.
I didn't notice you at all.
No matter, no matter. Anyway, to more pressing concerns. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? I must dispatch a telegram to your country at once. It's a matter of much urgency. To Japan, you mean? Tell me, whom can I entrust to the task? Quickly now, who?
Well, my father has just now left to send a telegram to the Imperial Police Bureau of Japan himself.
I see. Well, he looked reliable enough for a bearded fellow. What's that supposed to mean?
I don't think what father sports could be considered a beard, Mr. Sholmes.
There's not a moment to lose. Kindly ask your trusty unshaven father to see that this is sent.
I will, but what is it?
No questions at this time, if you please, Mr. Sato. All we can do is pray. Uh-oh. That for once, my deduction is awry.
For once? Doesn't that imply that your deductions are normally correct, Mr. Sholmes? It's exactly what I was thinking. Now then. Well, you may be surprised to learn that I am a very busy man. Really? I certainly have no time to hide behind settees and eavesdrop on other people's conversations. Really? Was that not what you were literally just doing? Really? So that's what joining us for tea meant? I leave the sending of this in your hands then, my dear fellows. And he's off. Wait a minute, Mr. Sholmes. He just sort of ran off, didn't he? At quite a pace. He left the unpaid bill for his tea behind, too. I swear, interactions with Sholmes are always quite surreal. Man. Where does this leave us?
I must catch up with Father at the telegraph office at once. And I'll run and call us a cab straight away.
And they're off, too. And there was me thinking everyone would be clamoring to pay Mr. Sholmes' bill. Oh boy, I guess that's what we'll be doing. Let's see, is he back yet? 2nd of November, prosecutor's office. He's actually here now. Kazuma. I thought it wouldn't be long before you paid me a visit. I was right about what I said, wasn't I? Sorry? That you have all the makings of a great defense lawyer. Well, I always believed that you'd fulfill your dream of advocating in the British courts. And I just never imagined for 1 second that it would be as a prosecutor.
Seeing you stand in a foreign courtroom, so gallantly realizing your dream, Kazuma-sama, I'm truly happy for you.
And I am truly thankful to you, Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. Oh boy. Ryunosuke, I always thought it would be fun for you and I to shake up the British legal system a little together. And this isn't quite how I envisioned it, but I suppose it's just another twist of fate. I've learned a lot of things during my time in London about how Susada-san's father was himself a visiting student here once, along with Judge Jigoku, and about what happened with your father. And then you'll have no difficulty understanding why I had no choice, why I had to find a way to get to Britain as a visiting student myself. He had answers. I want to hear it from you, Kazuma. As you wish, Ryunosuke Norohodo. That we get the story straight from the horse's mouth. Your disappearance. It's getting on for a year now, since what happened on the SS Buria. We were heading across the ocean from Japan to Great Britain, when a bizarre, series of coincidences led to those tragic events. I thought I'd lost my best friend forever. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I awoke, I was lying on a bed. It was a narrow little room. There was a posy of flowers by the pillow. It took me a little while to realize that I was in the cabin of a ship. I slipped out of the room and headed up onto the deck. Were you already suffering from amnesia at that point? Yes, I didn't know what had happened or where I was. There was just this voice in my head. You have something you have to do. Say something no one else can know about. Go to Great Britain. Your task awaits you there. It was a calling I couldn't ignore. It compelled me relentlessly. Out on deck, I saw that I was on a huge steamship, and we were docked in a large port.
It must have been Hong Kong.
Yes, it must have been, presumably just before they were due to carry your body off the ship. I had no idea of the situation, but I did have the feeling that this was in some way my last chance. So I concealed myself among the disembarking passengers and went ashore. Then I disappeared into the crowded streets of that foreign port city, so I could plan my onward journey to Great Britain. Alright, so how'd that go? Just under a year ago, with all my past memories lost to me, I was left behind in Hong Kong. Everything was foreign to me. The sights, the sounds, the smells. My head reeled. I was truly at a loss. I realize now that I'd escaped as a dead man, with nothing but the clothes on my back, no money, of course.
Oh, how terrifying for you.
Luckily, though, I had 2 feathers in my cap. One being your knowledge of English, I suppose? That's right. And on the back of that, I was able to pick up some work as a deckhand on a cargo ship. Eventually, after calling at countless ports, I finally arrived at Dover. That must have been some 3 months ago now. Your formidable tenacity of purpose showing itself again. I mean, the man had lost his memory and had literally nothing to his name, but he still managed to make his way to London on the opposite side of the world. Of course, I had no idea why I'd moved heaven and earth to get here at that point. So how did you end up becoming Lord Van Zieks' apprentice then? That can only be called an extraordinary stroke of luck, really. You see, I was stopped at the border because I had no papers. They took me straight to Scotland Yard. And by sheer coincidence, Lord Strongheart was there to attend a meeting. That's when the second feather in my cap came into play.
Would that have been your knowledge of the law?
Yes, exactly. Lord Strongheart was curious about an Easterner with intimate knowledge of British law. He took me back with him to the Supreme Court and assigned me to the prosecutor's office. And then 9 days ago, you finally got your memory back after the trial involving Drebber, right? Yes, I did. Okay, what about your father? Ever since I first met you at Yume, you talked about your dream. Mark my words, Ryunosuke. I will be chosen as a visiting student and make my way to Great Britain someday. Did you know the entire time about what happened to your father here? Curious. 16 years ago. Okay. When my father left on that exciting trip to Great Britain, I was just a boy. We took a photograph together the day before his departure. It's my last memory of him. But what I remember most about my father is his unswerving sense of justice. Okay. That's why it makes sense that he would have killed everyone but Van Zieks' brother. 6 years after he left, a gentleman called at our family home. He told me that Genshin, my father, had been taken ill in England and passed away. It was Professor Mikotoba, your father, Susato-san.
Oh my!
Ever since then, the professor was very good to me. He even helped to fund my university education at Yume. I'll be forever in his debt. But nevertheless, I just couldn't bring myself to believe what he told me.
Oh.
Then one day, a letter arrived at our house from Britain. There was no indication of the sender, so I opened it, assuming it was an old acquaintance of my father. Uh-oh. What I read in that letter changed my entire life. What did it say? It said that my father had been a mass murderer, and the writer cursed the Ashoge name.
Oh no!
As a result of that letter, I found out what had been hidden from me all those years. Okay, who did it come from, I wonder? Presumably, the letter was sent from a relative of one of the victims. If whoever it was had been a member of the judiciary, he could have been present at that closed trial. The letter revealed that my father had been sentenced to death, executed for being a killer. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. I imagine the British government did its very best to silence whoever sent that letter. But someone who knew the truth and couldn't bear the resentment was always going to be a problem.
But still, it could have been written by anyone. Why would you believe such a thing?
There was a newspaper cutting included with the letter. It was the first I'd ever heard of the professor and his terrible killing spree.
Well, what did my father have to say about the letter?
I couldn't bring myself to show it to him. What? Why not? Because he deliberately concealed the truth from me by telling me my father was taken by a fatal illness. That couldn't have been easy for him, and he'd done it out of consideration for my feelings. So instead, I showed the letter to Judge Jigoku. Ah, to the other visiting student. He faltered for the briefest of moments, but then he just laughed the letter off. But in that moment, I saw it on his face. He was undeniably shocked, shaken momentarily before recovering his pose. A year later, my bereaved mother succumbed to the strain of grief, and she too passed away. That's when I made up my mind that one day, without fail, I would cross the seas to Britain and seek the truth for myself.
So we might be revisiting the case then.
The truth about my father, Genshin Ashogi. And I wouldn't let anyone stand in my way.
Oh, Kazuma-sama.
Oh man, so the Reaper's trial. What we learned today in court turned things completely on their head. It was an impressive piece of lawyering. Ryonosuke Naruhodo.
Lord Van Zieks isn't the Reaper, you know. I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that Inspector Gregson himself, the victim, was.
It's clear that the inspector was behind the Reaper's activity all along.
What? You mean you knew?
The real question is, who's been giving orders to the inspector? Yes, Barrick Von Zieks is the real Reaper.
What?
And I know that 10 years ago, it was him who decided my father must be a mass murderer and sent him to his grave.
No, he was merely seeing that justice was done as law dictates. He's not to blame.
Ultimately, it's people who condemn people. The law is just a tool that they use to do it.
So we're pitting our best friend against Barrick Van Zieks. Oh man, this is gonna be crazy to see how this plays out.
And when a man condemns another, he must take responsibility for his actions. Of course he must. But I know for certain that my father would never have taken another man's life.
Kazuma?
On the contrary, my father's life was taken by the Reaper.
Well, that's some interesting revelations. What do we make of all this? Where do we go from here? I mean, Kazuma seems to have his mind completely made up, and it's 100% against our client. How are we going to get out of this? How are we going to win this? Who's right and who's wrong? I don't know. We're going to have to find out in the next episode. So if you like this kind of content, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. If you want to watch live, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/LayR27. I have my schedule posted in the about and in the description. And if you want to see which games we're playing each day, I post them on x.com/LayR27. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Until then, guys, bye.